I'm going to show you how to continue the process that I started of how to migrate your database off of Lovable Cloud and move the app as well while keeping the new Supabase database. We have our Supabase working and functional, and then we also move the app. That's going to allow us to use better coding tools like Claude Code instead of the Gemini that is inside Lovable. It'll also let us manage context better. So when we go to fix things, we don't have the situation where the context gets mixed up and we ask it to change one thing and it fixes something else, breaking the entire app or breaking a feature that you already had working. Let's go ahead and jump in. The tools that we're going to use today are Claude Code. We're going to use Railway for hosting. We're going to use the same app that I used in this video. We're just going to continue that forward. We have the application here. It's a little project management tool. And then we're going to create a Supabase account here. So we'll create a fresh project so you can see the whole process. And once we're done, we're going to have the project database on Supabase, and then we're going to have the app running on Railway, and we will have Claude Code doing our editing. To begin with, we are going to make a backup of the database. I have a backup from before, from the last video, but I've added another project here just so we have a little separation of the features of this video. I'm going to have another backup. I'm going to put a little prompt in here that says, please pull a backup of the database in an SQL file here for me. That's going to pull this in. Now, just to look at it, this is on Lovable Cloud right now. In the last video, I only moved over the database to Supabase, so the actual app is still connected here to the Lovable Cloud, and we can see in here that the project, the extra project that I created, is over here, and that was created today. All right, so that is what we're pulling here. Now we have our database backup over here, and this is our database backup. Now that we have this file, we're going to go ahead and download it and save that on your computer. You're just going to save that for later. We're going to use it in a little bit. Now we need to collect our Supabase database items. So we're going to start a new project here. For this demonstration, we can do a micro. If your app is a little larger, you can increase that, or you could build a micro one and then increase it later once you're done with your migration. Here I've given it a name, and we're going to give it a password. I'm just going to let it generate this password, and you do want to copy that password because you may need it later. So copy that password and save it somewhere else. I've gone ahead and checked these two boxes here, and we're going to create a new project. This will take a little bit to run, and then you're going to get a project URL and a publishable API key. We want to copy both of those so you have them and don't have to chase them down again. We can see here it's still setting up the project. We'll give that a little bit of time and go over here to get our project ready to pull down to our computer so we can publish it up here once we get it all connected. We're going to go to this preview tab here, and we're going to click this GitHub button to link it up to our GitHub account. If you do not have a GitHub account, make one first, please. It will make your life easier. You'll make a GitHub account just at github.com. Then you're going to click Connect to GitHub once you have your GitHub account created. It'll give you an option to connect it to your business here or to your GitHub account you just created. You have to do that first. Mine is already connected. Then you're going to connect the project. So now that that's in GitHub, we're going to click here and open it in GitHub. And we're going to go over to Settings and make this a template repository right here. And then we're going to go back to this code page and click Use this template to create a new repository. This is going to let us take a copy of this exactly as the code is, but make a new version of it that doesn't touch the Lovable application. That way, as we make changes to it, it's not just a branch that could possibly interact with Lovable's setup here if we do it incorrectly, or if we remove things like the .env file that Lovable doesn't protect properly. This will allow us to have the exact copy of the code, but edit it all we want to prepare it for everything we're going to do and never mess up our live project. Once we're ready, we could change the domain or something like that to turn the new version into the live project. We're going to click Create New Repository here. We've got our template, and we'll just name it something a little different. Client Project Hub 2 is fine. We're going to change this to private and create this. Now that that's created, we're going to go over into GitHub Desktop, and we're going to pull this project down. Click Add, Clone Repository. Might have to refresh this. There it is. Client Project Hub 2 and clone. We're going to open it in Visual Studio Code because that's where I have Claude Code connected. Visual Studio is free for Windows and Mac, so you should be able to get it without any issue, and then you can connect Claude Code into that to run this the way I'm going to do it. You could also use other tools like Windsurf. I'll post a link to these in the description. Windsurf is great, and you can also use something like Code. I like the Visual Studio and Claude Code just because it's a direct connection to Claude Code, and there's a lot of extra tools you can use there. But the process I'm going to show will work in Code, it'll work in Windsurf, it would work in Cursor. Just the same here. You could do the same thing in Anti-Gravity, but one of the reasons I'm showing this is to move us away from Gemini. And Gemini is the default agent in Anti-Gravity, so you would kind of be using the same process as you have on Lovable. So if you really like Gemini as your agent, Anti-Gravity is good. I find it to be unreliable for strategic changes to code. That's why I stick with this. We're going to open it in Visual Studio Code. If we click over here, we'll see we have all of those files. Now, one thing that is right here is the .env. And this is something that Lovable does a poor job of. That is, they commit this env with all of its information to the GitHub repo, which is not what you want to do in general. That's a private repo, so it's not the worst, not the end of the world, but you definitely don't want the .env going to the repo. We're going to go over here to the git ignore and add that in. Then we'll just do a simple little commit message, and we'll tell it we're updating the git ignore and sync that change. Now that we've made that change, we need to go and clear the .env out of the history of this repo. We're going to open Claude Code here. This I am using the Claude Code extension in VS Code. We're going to say, please review this repo. It was set up with the .env committed to the repo, and I want that to be cleared, so we need to remove it from the history, please. It's going to look through the code and understand it a little bit. Here it gives us some important information that we should rotate those keys in the Supabase dashboard. Right now, I'm not worried about that because this is a private repo, so once we clear it out, nobody will have access to that. But if it were not a private repo, you would definitely want to do this. And it's not a bad practice to do it anyway, but in this case, we don't have to. We're going to tell it to proceed. Okay, now we have it removed, and we have this backup over here, and now our .env file is restored. We can copy this command here and go to Terminal, New Terminal, paste it in. We're going to click here to open our source control and publish our branch. And then we're going to go over and test it. Just save a small change and make sure that your .env file doesn't show back up here in source control. So it is excluded here. Okay, so we've got that cleaned up. Now, this is something that you can't do in Lovable, which is start a new conversation. When you're working with AI, you will get the best results if you start a new conversation for each task. We're starting a new conversation after this. We're going to click this little button to get a new conversation and close the last one. That's one of the big reasons why I use something other than Lovable for more advanced development. As I'm sitting here, I have realized that this database backup also got included in our push to GitHub. And I don't want that there because it has pretty much everything that would be in our database, which in this case isn't an issue because it's just demonstration information. But in your case, it might be real user information with real IDs and things like that. So we want to exclude that too. We're going to go through that exercise one more time. We are going to start by adding that file here. Now that that's added, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say, please review this repo. See that a database backup, and I've given it the name of the file, is saved and committed to the Git history and should not be, as it is sensitive info. Please help remove that from the history. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to clear this out. And it's the same process. So we're going to go ahead and tell it to proceed. And just walk through each of these commands. All right. We will go ahead and copy these commands and run them in terminal as well. And go back here and publish our branch. And now we have a backup of that file ourselves that we downloaded at the beginning of this or near the beginning of this task. So we will be using that instead of the one that Lovable put here. Again, it's just a bunch of security stuff that Lovable shouldn't be doing. They should not be committing that information to GitHub, but it's just not set up quite right. So that secure information is sent out to GitHub, and we don't really want that. Now we are going to prepare this for our new location on Supabase that we've set up, and then we're going to move the app over here to Railway so that they can connect together. Now, when we were creating this, we copied down the URL and the publishable API key. We're going to go to our .env that is now hidden, and we are going to copy that information in. We have this empty spot here. Now I've cleared these out. So we'll start with the publishable key. We'll paste that in here. We're also going to get the URL, and we're going to paste that in. And then this is actually the project ID right here. So we're just going to copy that and put that up here and save those. All right, so that is our new project. Then we are going to prepare this for our copy. We're going to say this app is being migrated from one Supabase instance to another. I have a backup file of the database and it needs to be migrated to the new Supabase instance. Please see that the new Supabase connection is listed in the .env file. The backup is in a file named databasebackup.sql, which is untracked. Then we're going to paste that file in here. So you'll want to go back to where you downloaded that file and drag and drop it into here. Then I have this database backup. We're just going to drag it right in here. Okay, we have that file. It's still wanting to track this file here, and we're going to take care of that problem once the migration is done. So don't do a commit here. You can just have it here so that Claude Code can access it. Then we send this message like this. We're just making this temporarily available. Now it's told us how to run this, but there is a thing that it has not done yet, which is create the schema. We have all of the schema over here, which is in migrations. Okay, so these are already created. And we will have to have it run those migrations first. It points out one more thing here, which is the user needs to be added to Supabase. In this case, only one user. We can go ahead and add that user first and then come back to this. So we'll go over here to Supabase. We'll go to authentication, add a user, and we're going to create a user with the same username as the one in the app, which is just in this case me. And we'll auto-confirm the user. And this gives it a new UUID, which we'll need. Now we go back over here and copy this UUID here. We're going to say the user has been created. The new UUID is this. We have all the migrations in the Supabase migrations folder and they need to be run. We're going to have that here. Now there is a step here that we could take. We are probably going to use just this SQL editor, but there's another process that we could use to allow the AI to actually connect directly to the database, and that would be to use this. We're going to click this connect button and we get our database direct connection string here. Then we can go over to our .env file and paste that in. We'll name it database URL because that's pretty standard. Then we paste that in, and then we need this password that we saved earlier. So if you remember, I told you to save that password when you were creating the database. That is why you would need it right here. It has given us the script here. What we could do is copy this right here, all of this information that it's given us, into the SQL editor right here and run that. But let's give it a try with the new database URL that we just created. We'll say I just added the database URL to the .env. Can you please run those directly? And if it argues with us about it, we'll just go do it through the SQL editor. So here was that first step that it gave us all of this information. All right. Sometimes in Supabase, the direct connection URL doesn't work. That's this right here. And we have to grab a different one, and they actually have several. So we will go over to ORMs and we'll move this to Drizzle. We will copy this top one here and replace that. I have not yet seen an actual set of consistency in this. Sometimes that first URL works, other times you have to use the pooler, copy that password back in, and we'll say, try again with the new URL I updated. That URL is working. So again, just right here, the default one works in almost every case that I've done, but if it fails, I find it to fail about 1 out of 10, then you can use this over here. I change it to Drizzle and just grab this top one that supports IPv4, IPv6. It's mainly an issue with the network and can just be based on the router you're using or the system you're connecting through, VPNs, all sorts of things like that. And here we go. We're running the rest of the migrations, and it's checking to see if the user exists. It does not. And it's going to run the data import with the new UUID that I gave it. This is the import, and it's going to check the data, make sure all the information is there, and that matches what we had. We have 2 projects and everything else is 1. There we are. That's in place. Now, the next thing we're going to do is go over here and remove this backup. We haven't committed it to GitHub. We're just going to go here and move that to trash. There we are. Now that file is gone and it's not in our GitHub history since we spent the time removing it already. We're going to go over here now, new conversation. We are going to run this application. So you can use a command like this. We'll say, please tell me how to run this app locally, what commands? And it's going to tell you how to run your application. There's some pretty common commands, probably npm install and npm run dev. Here we are. Yep, that's pretty common here. There is one situation you may run into, and that is that it cannot see the env file when the app is running, but we will test it and see. We're going to go to terminal. We're going to do npm install. And this will install all the dependencies here. So all these node modules are now being installed right here, and those are untracked here in Git ignore. And that is set up. Now we'll do npm run dev, and let's see if the application opens. Here we are. We're going to try to sign into it, and it looks like we are connected. There we are. Now let's go ahead and add a test project. We'll name it test project 3, and let's confirm that that is created inside our database. So we'll go over here to the table editor, and we'll go to projects, and there's test project 3. So we are now connected here to the new Supabase. If you were to go back here to the cloud and look at the database here, you would see that the one on Lovable only has the first 2 projects. So we've successfully separated them. This way, any changes we make on the local version aren't going to affect what might be your live app in Lovable Cloud. Now we have this here, we have our database connected, and we are going to move this app up to Railway so we can connect it to Supabase and have a cloud public version, and this would be where you could deploy the app. We're going to go over to our deploy button right here, and we're going to pick the repo that we just had, and we have this client project hub 2 here. We're going to click that, and it will start to deploy it. Now this first deploy will fail because we have not put in any variables right over here, and it needs to know where the database is. So we're going to go back to our application, to our env file, Control or Command A to select it, Control or Command C to copy everything there, go to New Variable, just put your cursor in, and paste, Control V. Now all of those variables are moved over, and we will click Deploy again. Okay, so now we have the one that was running to begin with, and then the one that was just created. Let's go ahead and remove this one, so we don't need it. And it looks like they've got us in a deployment queue. So we're going to give that just a minute to move past queuing. Normally this will start building almost immediately, within 10 or 15 seconds of being queued. So when I see this having a delay like this, I like to go to status.railway.com, and we can see here that it is actually an issue in Railway. It's not a problem with our code or anything like that. We are just seeing that they have a little bit of slowness going on. This would be where you go and grab a coffee or do something else for a little bit, and your app publishing will start again once they are done resolving this issue. Now, when it goes to publish, it may not publish entirely successfully right away. There may be a few changes that we have to make to the application in order to make it work on Railway, and that's fine. But you always have to push it up here and see what type of errors you're going to get directly in the Railway environment to make decisions about what you want to edit. You can see here it names it something interesting. We will go and change that name. You can change it to anything you want. Just makes it easier for you to tell out of your list of projects which one it is. While we're waiting for Railway here, I want to show you another place that I like to host this sort of application. It's AWS Amplify. We can just click this deploy an app button, and you can set up an account or log in. Once you are signed in, then you can go over here to deploy from GitHub right here, and we will tell it next and authenticate this with GitHub. I have already authenticated this, and we're going to select our repo. We'll do this client project hub 2. We've got our main branch as our only branch here, and you can leave these as default for now. Go to advanced settings. We need to put in our environment variables here. So we're pasting those in here. This isn't quite as friendly as Railway, so you have to paste them one at a time. Once those are all in place, then you tell it next. This sets up your environment. You can edit the environment if you want, and save and deploy. We can see it's deploying here. You can click it for more details if you want. It's set to auto build. Here's your build log. Looks like the build failed here, and it looks like it's missing the lock file. We built this on our computer. Instead of rebuilding the lock file on deployment, it's wanting the lock file to go with it. So because we ran npm install, that's right here. We'll say updated lock file and commit that, sync that change. You'll see that immediately starts deploying again. And you'll see here that we have that now running. It's working on the deployment. You'll also see those changes I made are being queued up here. Railway still seems to be having a deployment delay. It says they're working through a backlog, so it'll get to ours shortly, I'm sure. Build completed successfully here. And now it is working on the deployment, and it says deployment is completed. We would have a URL right here where we can get to the application. This is on AWS Amplify, pretty much the same process inside Railway. They're just having a little bit of an issue right now. We have the application here, back up again, and we can see that all our projects are in place. So this is connected to the new Supabase that we're running. Now, at this point, the application has completely diverged. So this is a new copy of the application using an exact snapshot that we took from Lovable to move over here. And it's using a new Supabase instance, has a new copy of hosting. Currently, we're looking at it here on AWS Amplify until Railway finishes this up. The process looks pretty similar. It should be the same type of build. We're going to clean some of these out here. There we go. So we remove those. Just waiting for this queue. That way we lighten the queue load here for them. Well, since this has been sitting here on Railway for an hour, not deployed, I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. You can follow the process that I showed here for AWS Amplify. The process on Railway will be identical. You just have to wait for this to deploy, which in most cases would have been done within the first 3 minutes of us clicking the button. This will deploy once they finish fixing their backlog, and there isn't anything we can do about that in this case. And for regular use cases, the application would not be down or offline because we separated it out. That's why we do things like I did, which gives us the ability to leave the operational app up and running until we get things deployed. This doesn't really hurt the user at all. All right, so go ahead and follow the process as I've outlined. If you need help with yours, I will post my booking link in the description of this video. Go ahead and book a time. We'll take a look at your app. Not every application is as clean and cut and dried as the example that I have here in this video. There may be custom things with your application that need to be done. But in general, this is the flow. I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing my channel with others who might need it as well.